so let's kick things off. I'm really excited to have everybody here. Welcome to a live webinar version of the Sounds Profitable product deep dives. We're going to be taking a little bit of a different approach today, and I'm really excited about that because part of Sounds Profitable's mission is to connect as many people as possible, and it is incredibly heartwarming to see three amazing partners that we work with collaborate in such an interesting way and being able to share that story with you. So with that, Pete, I'd love to have you introduce yourself, a little bit about Frequency, and then what we're digging into today.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thank you for hosting this. This has been fantastic. It's almost like I think a year or two since we did a deep dive last on this product that we're going to go through again today, called the Creative Manager by Frequency. And what Frequency does is provides better workflows and smarter delivery. That's our tagline. And better workflows for podcast networks, meaning how do we help you vet your advertisers, produce your ad spots, and then deliver that across ad servers? And what we're going to focus on today is that delivery aspects. And what's great is we have our partners here today, Barometer and NumberEight, to showcase how can we use their data in particular to actually hit listeners with relevant ads that are going to drive better performance. So what I will do is I'm going to show you a demo of the Creative Manager and walk through some of the whiz-bang features that we have.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic place to start. If people want more about the Creative Manager, again, it is probably about a year old, so there's probably some new improvements and features, but we've done a deep dive and we'll share the link to that afterwards. That we highly encourage you to check out or schedule some time with Pete and team directly to do that. I really want to highlight here, one of the key things Pete said is using other people's data, using third-party partnerships like Barometer and NumberEight. And also that, pretty much means limitless, right? This is a great example of using one or more partners' data. And that's kind of what we want to highlight here, the flexibility and the open-mindedness of being able to be versatile with what data we action off of in podcasting. That's really how we're going to grow as an industry. So let's see some of those improvements.
Sounds good. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to drop us in right into our flight overview page, right? Yep. So our clients, when they set up campaigns, set up flights, that actually can be done directly inside Frequency, or you can have it hooked into your order management system, and all of that data can be ported in, right? So imagine OMSs like Booster, Operative, Placements.io, all that data can be brought in and then pushed directly into ad servers. So what you're looking at right now is just kind of a flight details page with 2 ad units. And what we're going to look at is the actual ad unit using the Creative Manager for integration with data providers. So I'm going to open up the Creative Manager. Now, this application is a standalone application that can be hooked in directly to any ad server as well. We are connected today to Triton's ad platform. So if you use TAP, you can actually use the Frequency Creative Manager for any campaign that you're running.
And when you say that, you mean fully integrated, as if I have an account in TAP and I were to log in there, when I use creative management as a feature in there, it's really using Frequency and
it's using Frequency today. Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. But we're also saying if I'm on another platform, I can provide, would I get a VAST tag, or what would the other solution be for how I would use this as a publisher on another hosting platform?
Yeah, we can produce a VAST tag, or we can push the files directly into the ad server.
And that's something that I really want to highlight and make sure everybody is aware of. That versatility is fantastic. VAST as an ad serving format is going to continue to mature in podcasting. And I want to highlight that everybody here has a vested interest in seeing that being taken seriously and grow around it. But the hosting platforms have different views on it, and we're still trying to figure that out. The versatility to do VAST or push it into an ad server can't be understated, because it means that there's very few roadblocks. We can either do it how it's built in with your platform, or you can do it through VAST, and we can hit your same goals.
Yeah, and that's right. And so what we're going to focus in on right here is using a VAST tag with data providers at the same time to make a decision. So what's going to happen is if you're hooked into Megaphone and you throw in the Frequency VAST tag, it's going to call the Frequency ad servers and say, hey, which creative should I run? So you're using the Frequency system and the Creative Manager as a decisioning engine. And then you're leveraging partners, data providers like Barometer and NumberEight to make those decisions in real time. So what you're seeing on the canvas here, we call this the canvas, are 3 files that we've set up actually with our friend Lex Friedman. And we're going to be doing an example as if he was running these ads on his podcast called Your Daily Lex. Okay. So we have 3 files. I'm going to play one just to show you an example.
Did you know that non-organic coffee is the most pesticide-sprayed product in the world?
Now, this is an actual brand called Proof Coffee. It's a friend of mine. He runs this in New York, so a little plug for him. And what we're going to show is examples of proof coffee ads based on using data from Barometer NumberEight and how that can be leveraged in real time as a host. Right now, those files are listed. You can see a split 33 across. If I took one of these files off, it's going to change the percentage distribution immediately. Now, if you're working with an ad server that actually looks at listener ID, even in podcasting, depending on how it pulls in listener ID, so it also depends on the placement, you can actually run ads sequentially as well. So it can be all sorts of different ways of managing your creative in terms of distribution to your listeners. So right now, I've just got this default ad. I've got a politics ad. I've got a 50-50 split. Let's say I wanted to add actual pixels and track the ad in real time with, let's just call it a demo link. So this could be, Podscribe, Baratonic, Magellan, Claritas, any of those providers of third-party tracking pixels can be added in, and you could do as many as you want. So I'm going to do 2. Now, one of the things that the way that we built frequency is for ad ops to streamline the process and make it super smart. Watch this. If I was to change this link and I was going to have maybe a macro that didn't match, well, it should. There's a way that actually it will actually provide the macros and saying that this format is not valid. So it's not doing it right now. And that was my mistake because I think I'm using a wrong link. But it will actually provide those types of it would validate or invalid those formats and then provide you a list from frequency to say, double check, this is not valid, and provide the new link.
And let's real quick on that. So the signals that come in through your VAST tag and the signals that you're creating and identifying are then made available to forward to the impression pixels, which is really great.
I see. You know what? I see what's going on here. One second. I'm just going to pause my screen share. I apologize. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, the idea here is that this is the ability to not only pass directly the data that's being received to those third parties, which some hosting platforms provide, but custom parameters are more and more common and needed. But it's also the augmented data that frequency itself is identifying and deciding. You're talking about listener ID in this scenario. If one isn't provided over, you have the ability to determine a frequency listener ID, which then can be passed over and can become valuable.
It's all about the format. So in here, so I actually used the wrong link. Apologies for that. And it was actually copied and pasted incorrectly. So in here, you'll see macro format is invalid. And when I click on view details, it actually calls out which macro is invalid. So I can make adjustment. So I know that if I have the right macros, that data is going to be passed through correctly. If macros are not set up properly, and by the way, this is an ad ops problem consistent across the industry, you're not going to get that data, which could be a huge issue because then your advertiser may not be tracking. They'll say, hey, this didn't actually happen. That's not a valid impression. That means I have a make good, right? So we're trying to limit those issues. Now, as soon as I go to that part where I say user agent, not user agent, you'll see it works, right? And there's a verified link here.
Yeah, we need more ops tools like this to prevent issues from coming out. I think we're really strong as an industry on how to identify problems once they're live, but I think these preemptive measures are going to be the next step that a lot of people focus on. So that's really exciting to see you prioritize that.
And so I'm going to we're going to try and move along here. If I was to publish this unit very quickly, just as is it structured, we also have capabilities of settling the sample rate, bit rate, and loudness. And this is set at the client level. So each client player, whatever you may be using, you can actually have the LUFS preset or adjust. So I'm going to publish this. This is going to transcode those files in real time. It's going to sit behind that VAST tag, as we were talking about. And then you can use the right ad server and paste the right VAST tag into the ad server. Or if you're not doing it through the VAST tag, if you want to just add in your file directly, you can then actually push this directly into, one second.
You push it right into the hosting platform?
Yeah, you can. I think maybe I'd set this up as for whatever it's not showing.
No worries.
Yeah, so this is what you were saying before. Don't do a webinar demo like this.
I wasn't going to call you out that it's better to have everything set up in tabs beforehand, but as we're here, But so this is the creative manager, and this is really great here. You've shown the versatility of it, that I can have the creatives, that I can push it through VAST and all that. let's highlight some of the partners and where they fit
That's
in
right.
here.
We'll jump in
because,
here.
Because that's the targeting, right? So just to be clear, this is a great opportunity. Using this tool is a great way to manage more than one creative and more smart decisioning than simply geo and what device type they're on or things like that. There's more to it, right? And not just time of day and all that. And so do you think it's a good time to pull up Toma to talk a little bit more about the barometer data and how that can help for decisioning here?
Yeah, let's do it. And as Toma, you're going in, I'll show the data signal console one.
Well,
Awesome.
we'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Toma or Tamara Zubati, the CEO and co-founder of Barometer. It's my absolute pleasure to be here and to share about some of the latest capabilities in our partnership with Frequency. It's super exciting to be sharing the virtual stage with the legends here. Of course, Brian, Emma, Pete. Y'all are the best. So I'm just going to share a little bit about Barometer and then how the integration works. So Barometer is an omni-channel contextual engine. Our AI analyzes the content and then reports on how that content is categorized across various industry standard taxonomies. For example, the brand safety and suitability frameworks that are industry standard, like GARM, the IAB content taxonomy version 3.0, and other taxonomies. So what is cool about the integration with Frequency is in the past with Frequency before our integration, you could use different decisioning factors like location or like time of day or other factors like the weather. Now what this new integration is bringing in is details about the context where that ad will be running at the level of the episode. So for example, say you have a show that's like about society and culture, and maybe some of the episodes are about politics and some of the episodes are about like health and wellness, but then half the episodes are about The Bachelor. Maybe you want to be able to dynamically alter the creative based on what that subject matter really is. So I think Pete will be able to show you now, if we use the contextual presets of politics and healthy living as data features for the targeting, how would that actually impact the creative that would be inserted?
Yeah, that's right. And so what I've got here now, again, is my proof default version. This is a proof version, an ad with politics in mind. So if the episode has got political content, or if it's got something related to health or nutrition.
Pesticides are making us sicker. Did you know that non-organic coffee is the most pesticide-sprayed product in the world?
That's the health version.
Elections, debates, red states and blue states. At some point, you need a break from all the fighting because sometimes the biggest debate you want to have is iced latte or hot. Some of us are hot coffee devotees.
So you can imagine.
Is that a debate? I think it's ice. I think the answer is no.
At this point.
But
some people haven't made the switch yet,
no
Brian.
right
I have not made the switch. I'm still drinking my hot coffee.
Oh man, but that's really great. I mean that's now with the decisioning comes in through the signals that you receive that identify what the show is, and then Barometer has already transcribed them, contextualized the show, and then provides those signals so that when you select IAB category for elections or you select certain GARM ones, you're getting that confirmation from Barometer on what this show is and even what this episode is.
Yeah, that's right. And the most important factor here is it's not just like with brand supplied ads. You can do this with host read ads, producer read ads, voice of network. You can use these data signals to make them come to life and be a little bit more relevant for listeners. So the stuff with Barometer, which is really cool about brand suitability, safety, the genre, the IAB categories. Imagine if you've got an interview talk show. I was just talking to Jordan Harbinger earlier today. If he's doing a topic about politics or he's doing something about nutrition, he can change this just by having another version of that creative. So it's a simple way. It doesn't require too much effort, but man, it's going to drive that much more influence because you're going to be, queuing in into what people are listening to at that moment.
Yeah, creative optimization is an area we haven't really dug into a lot yet. I think people continue to look at just like, does this show work overall, not the episode, not that specific implementation of the read. There's enough available inventory that people tend to move on if these tests don't work instead of refining. And this is a great endorsement for why that's the next thing that we really need to focus on. So we have the Barometer data. I'd love to introduce our next guest, Emma, to introduce yourself a little bit about her company and talk about the data that they're offering to be able to target with.
Thank you so much, Brian. And Emma Raz, I run commercial operation NumberEight. NumberEight is an idealist data platform. But as idealist data platform is, it means all of our data solutions are all idealist, so privacy by design, being London-based, GDPR is kind of in our DNA, and everything that we do has to be compliant with a whole range of international regulations. And the way that we think of data is basically, how do we take non-PII, non-personal data, how do we take random pieces of information, either from the hardware, I always have a phone like everyone else, a hardware, so the sensory data like magnetometer, gyroscope, all of that good things that are existing within the device itself, or random information within the bid request, and transform them into meaningful insights about either the behavior of the users or the demographics. So some examples from the sensory data. The sensory data, if I was running a demo, it will show that I'm currently indoor. And this is really hot outside. I brought Can back with me to London. It's horrible. And sorry, I definitely need some ice here. So and then it's also this is my home, this is my work, I'm currently working from home, it should be about dinner time here in London, and so on and so forth. So everything you can potentially know about me as a person. Also that I'm a pet owner. The husky is right here, passed out because of the heat. That I'm a shopper, a traveler, and so on. Like all of the things we think about, how do you understand people? Same with demographic, taking the information from the content, podcast, understanding who is the listener. What does it mean? It means better storytelling. What are we trying? Basically, data is the power behind powerful storytelling. If we're looking at the way that our brain works, is we tend to just block out things that are not relevant for us. Why do we need to know users' behavior? Why do we need to know what they're listening to? Contextual. So the amazing job Barometer is doing. So we need to know how to tell them better stories that they can connect to. At the end of the day, all listeners, all consumers, all of us are really emotional creatures, and we connect on an emotional level, and we need to be told stories that we can feel an emotional connection to. And I think that's the power of data in terms of creating.
And so what we're looking at here is that if you do have an app or a website or something like that, you can work directly with NumberEight to do more first-party integration and give those signals. And that's really powerful there. I think we're on like the upswing now. I mean, we've had a lot of podcast app closures from specific companies, but we're seeing it. We're seeing audio data, audio players get into more apps. So we're going to see more reason for this to grow in this space. And we're seeing more reason, even if you get, 2, 3, 4% of your total listenership in your own app, it's enough to learn something about. And so the first party data is possible with NumberEight, which is really exciting. Very few partners can provide that for podcasting today. But the other part here is, and I really want to highlight this, is that, if people watch on an app a lot of sports content, very specific female hosted sports content, and then they read a lot of articles by female sports correspondents, we can infer that if a podcast is hosted by a woman talking about sports, that we likely can take some signals from those audiences. And this combination here allows that first party data knowledge to match with that contextual knowledge. So NumberEight and Barometer collaborating there, and then frequency coming together to allow you to activate all of those together to whatever specificity you need in that moment. And while we were talking through this, I just want to call this out. Pete very quickly walked through all this up there. This isn't like just make an external data call or anything like that. This isn't multiple UIs where you have to select that or import the data or upload a list and hope you did it correctly. This is a true integration where they're already working together, and everything you see in there can be selected if you have access to these accounts and are working with these partners, so that you could just immediately action on it. And that's really powerful. I think that speaks to the level of interconnectedness. We're not talking about just one partner relationship. We're talking about two here alone. And all three of these partners are really focused on working with as many people as possible, because limiting that just doesn't seem to make sense today in podcasting. So that's personally exciting for me. So Pete, why don't you walk through the things that you said here? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
Please.
Okay, I was just going to say the thing that makes me the most excited about this partnership is through Pete's efforts and the Frequency platform as kind of the facilitator for integrating all of these different data streams, it's now possible to answer new questions that we weren't able to answer before or target for before. So I know in the space of like brand suitability, we've always talked about how it's context dependent, but we've also talked about how it's dependent on who's listening. And never before have we been able to actually action off of that. So now you actually could make dynamic rules for your suitability based on who's listening, which could lead to increasing available inventory. So that's super exciting from my perspective.
Yeah,
I
let me
think
let me
Mars.
show you guys what this looks like, and then
Yeah,
we'll jump into an
we'll
example
start,
of
like we'll
the
dig into
combined.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we've got a couple minutes for Q&A. So here's an example of somebody that may be commuting.
When you're driving to work, it's easy to be wooed by the drive-through line.
And again, as Emma was saying, this is data that you're pulling in, signals from the devices that you're using, that NumberEight's collecting, and then we're leveraging that to make decisions in real time. Here's one from work from home.
If you're working from home, you deserve coffee that tastes better than
And we don't need to know that specific user ID. We're doing this based on this anonymous information that they've collected that we can leverage to make this come to life. Now, what's really
And
cool.
basically, what we're saying, like what you're saying, is this type of content over indexes with people who commute or people who work from home. Therefore, this is the right creative for them. And
Actually, specifically
more
for
than that? Yeah.
specifically for this is actual data of people that are commuting. So specifically this part,
Awesome.
like this type of data, this is actual behavior. So this is observed behavior, deterministic data from the device itself. So when you're looking at our other solutions, which is content over index for example, female, male, certain age, and this is how you do it, more predictive data. But this specific data set is actually your commuting. We're saying that you're commuting because you're in a vehicle, you're during commute time, and so on and so forth. You're currently working from home. So we're talking about, we determine this is my home, this is my work, I'm working from here, and therefore this is where I am. So this is really advanced data.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, that's what we think about. Like in podcasting, we just see the IP and user agent. Those are valuable signals. They are being challenged. IP is going to be challenged. Bigger industries than us will have to fight for that, and we're very thankful for them to spend their money there for us. But the value here is that because NumberEight is bigger than podcasting, like they're seeing these signals elsewhere. If you're logged into a first-party app or whatnot, and you've given consent, and then you're at home, and you're at the gym, and then you're at work, and all of these things, your IP address is matched to it, and then that household says this household contains someone who does commute. Right? Like these are more specific things, and it's just incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and while you guys were talking, what I ended up doing is I took a spreadsheet. So you can, what's really cool about frequency, again, for ad operational efficiencies, you can download everything you saw on the canvas and then change the configuration, meaning the impression pixels, the actual creative, you can change the data signals. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've saved already a configuration that I've imported, and now I'm going to update the canvas. And what it's going to do is in real time, it's going to take any of the assets that are already in frequency. It's going to use the data signals that we just reviewed from both Barometer and NumberEight, and it's going to combine that. So then we can look at, hey, how can we run these types of campaigns with both data providers together to make that audio ad even more impactful for the listener?
Very cool.
Now, here's a really cool example. So here's, again, work from home, but maybe it's with politics as well. So they're listening to an episode where politics was discussed, and they're working from home.
Elections, debates, red states and blue states. At some point, you need a break from all the fighting, because sometimes the biggest debate you want to have is iced latte or hot.
And then commuting with health in mind.
When you work from home, you know how important it is to make healthy decisions. You deserve coffee that tastes better than store-bought and coffee that's free from pesticides. You deserve proof. Proof.
Well, I guess that one was work from home, but anyways, you get the point. So
because it's you also have dynamic creative opportunities so that it can key off certain audio elements and build that unique ad
that's
in that
right.
scenario too. And we didn't have enough time to dig into that. And as we are close on time, I do think I want to dig into some questions here, because everybody who's on this, I would encourage you to get a direct demo, because there's going to be specific questions to you that I want you to make sure you have handled. But I want to ask a few overall questions. I mean, Pete, the first question I have is, if I'm a customer of Frequency, do I have access to all this, or do I have to personally have an individual relationship with both NumberEight and Barometer?
So you would need to have those partnerships set up with those publishers as well. So if you're working with, so for instance, if you're got a network, let's call it Wondery or Odyssey, they would also need to be leveraging the power of a Barometer or a NumberEight to collect that data, to make sure that data is available. It wouldn't just be naturally all available, because we're not just going and transcribing all the podcasts that are out there. So it does have to have some kind of specific setup in mind, and I'll let Toma and Emma answer that as well. But with being mindful of time, I think you do need to have also that type of data already initiated.
I think that's fantastic. And we don't have to dig into that too much, but that means that each of you have that relationship with the people you're working with, instead of it being funneled through one partner, which is always a concern as people grow and change platforms and all of this. They can each work with you individually and pick and choose how it all collaborates. Toma, I wanted to ask you to highlight dig into this a little bit more real quickly. You mentioned that because some of the decisioning is handled because of the fact that like the step one has been taken care of in this integration, you're able to look at data a little bit differently and dig deeper. Is that like where you see the industry moving? Like, are we moving to a phase where we're all not trying to build the transcription and the core like contextualization? Now we're moving into 2.0 and 3.0 of what more can you do when you combine it? What more can you learn when you look at it from different angles?
Yeah, I definitely think that now is kind of like the race for future proofing what targeting is going to look like after cookies go away. And that's probably going to be like, how do we go beyond what was previously possible, where maybe the status quo was like cohort based? So what does cohort based look like now that we have this finer grained data, better prediction, and more granular contextual data? So definitely think that that's where it's going.
Yeah, and Emma, the last question I want to ask here really is, what's it like to be a company that is bigger than podcasting, that is in the midst of first-party data being challenged and third-party data being challenged and all of this and all the privacy compliance? Like, what is the focus? Why are you in podcasting and then augmenting it when there's so many other areas that you guys could be doing? Because you're getting this data and you're doing these big fights in display and gaming and every other place that you can be. And these are killer topics there. Why audio? Because I'm happy you're here, but it's like you can unlock so much for us when other people have passed on doing this in audio.
I mean, I think that's a really great question. I mean, there's a few things that we also need to kind of like, if I had to correct, like there's a few things of how we do things, and we do things very different. So the first question, or the first element of your question that I'm going to answer, is privacy. The thing is, because NumberEight was designed with privacy in mind, it was built around the concept of privacy ethos. So everything that we do was first and foremost privacy inclined and trying to deal with the regulations and the requirements also from an ethical perspective. As well as this is why we're idealists in the first place. That does mean that we are looking at new type of integration, new type of activation, and how do we do it in scale? How do we do it more efficiently? How do we leverage new technologies? All of those fun words of like on-device computing, edge computing, otherwise known as AI, which is way too wide, and not only Gen AI, there is a lot of forms of AI, but you can do a lot more and you can do it differently. The reason why we actually started with audio was one of the first channels we went to. And one of our first partners, SES and Cross Stereo in Australia, is actually a joint partner across board. And it's because audio knows how to sell like they understand the spectrum of what you can do. Because we actually did daytime targeting, you understand moments that matter. And I think that's understanding of what is powerful. How do you tell better stories? Actually, audio has a leg up on some of the competitors. The reason why podcasting, I think podcasting is one of the fastest growing areas in audio, but more than that, it also needs data more than other parts. So we see a lot of similarities in terms of podcast consumption, CTV consumption, and even gaming. One in terms of how buys are happening, especially CTV and podcasting, and also of the need for data and what does it mean, which is why we decided to focus on entertainment and really dig into areas where other people couldn't do it. So we were like, okay, we'll take it. Like we'll do it. I love it.
Yeah. But that's so powerful. I mean, we are a little bit over on time. We thank you all for staying a little bit extra. I really want to just wrap up with this. All three of these partners here are worth your time for a direct demo. There's some really interesting things here, and I think everybody has really harped on this. There's more data we can get out of podcasting, and podcasting is better with more data. I think we've ebbed and flowed on how we view that. We've lamented not having listeners or device IDs, and we're past that now. We have what we have, and we think we have some really clever ways to unlock it, and we have proof. Everybody here has a case study or more that will show you why this is effective and how you should implement it. So I would encourage you to reach out to everybody here. We're going to follow up with an email with a recording of this and also everybody's contact info. And we thank everybody for joining us on this product deep dive.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian, for hosting this. And thank you, Tamara, for jumping in.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. So much.